The Angry Marks Podcast Network is brought to you by WrestleWork, a social network to connect, create, and share everything about pro wrestling. Check it out today at WrestleWork.com.
You're listening to the Raw Reaction on the Angry Marks Podcast Network.
Big Vic, this is Rob, and this is Killer Kev bringing you the first Raw reaction after WrestleMania. Epic WrestleMania last night, one of the best I've seen in a long time. Lots of good matches, lots of great things. We'll go over that along with this Monday Night Raw. Rob, what were your thoughts on WrestleMania last night?
I dug WrestleMania, especially the main event really popped me hard, brought out my inner Mark. I was really anticipating Raw as a result of Mania last night.
Yeah, it was definitely exciting. I'll tell you what, the big thing that I took away from WrestleMania last night, and I think even from last year's WrestleMania, sort of learned this. You don't need to have every wrestler does not need to be on the WWE WrestleMania, the main show. That's why they have the pre-show, where you can have the Scrub Battle Royal for the Andre the Giant trophy, and you can have an 8-man tag match with crappy teams. That was about right, because what it did not take time away from the bigger matches. I'd rather see a couple 20-minute matches than see matches get cut short, because, hey, you know what? We need to have a 40-people Battle Royal with just a bunch of scrubs and the one guy who wins it. So I was sort of happy. I think WWE got the booking right there with a 4-hour show. Pretty much outside of the ladder match and the Divas tag match, and I guess the main event at the end of it, everything was a one-on-one match. And I think that WWE did the right thing there. I think they need to start moving that way towards booking in future pay-per-views. People don't want to necessarily see a shit show with everybody gets their spot at some point in the pay-per-view. They want to see the stars. They want to see the bright spots.
Oh, for sure. That's kind of the dichotomy right now. WWE feels like they have to bring in like the older guys to kind of pop ratings. But the more and more I see of this generation, I feel pretty strongly like they're ready. They just need to be given a real chance, and that maybe we should just stick with this current crop.
Yeah, and I absolutely that was the thing. People loved the one-on-one matches. They loved the good matches. Even the Sting and Triple H match, I feel like people either loved it or hated it. But the big thing to come away from it is the thing that people loved was just squaring up two legends. They had their entourages with them because they couldn't carry a 15-minute match, but that's understandable. I don't think anybody expected Sting to come out and put on a 15-20-minute match with Triple H without a lot of help, and that's what we got.
Yeah, I guess the story is that Triple H was going into that match hurt, and that's why they did the shenanigans.
What was Triple H's injury going in?
I don't recall because I didn't read the Observer today, but I just heard that like he was going in hurt, kind of like Bray was, like where he pulled some kind of muscle stretching or something like that earlier in the day, much like Bray Wyatt or something like that, somewhere like on the backside of his leg. And that was the rumor as to why they did it that way, because Triple H wasn't confident that he could go 25 minutes without hurting himself further.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't think Sting could have gone
too much longer. No, he was starting to get blown up towards the end of that match.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get me wrong. He's a good performer. He would have put on a show, but he was lumbering around there for whatever it took, the 15, 20 minutes it took to get through the match as it was. So I think that WWE made a solid booking decision there and brought back a little nostalgia, even though, Sting and NWO didn't always see eye to eye. But, hey, you know what?
Monday, Jan came up with a pretty good logical explanation there. Steph might have overstretched Triple H's muscle. Get it?
Hey, you know what? That's very possible. Definitely with Ann. She's been looking rather fine. I called her thick. And I said, you know what? She's just sexy. So, I mean, that's one of the greater compliments you can give a lady.
Yeah, she could stretch my muscle any day.
Yeah, exactly. She definitely come together over these years. She's improved very well physically since the Macho Man days.
So yeah, I mean, Mania kind of left me anticipating tonight. I was actually home like an hour early, which I almost never do. I always kind of come in like 10 minutes late, almost every Raw, because I still have a hard time remembering it's at 8:00. So I mean, that tells you right there like how much anticipated this was for me. And like when we got the Brock Lesnar right at the top, I knew we were in for quite the show.
Oh yeah. I mean, this was a good promo, and Brock Lesnar, he was not a happy camper. He was pissed off because, you know what? He got robbed. And Paul Heyman told us this. Told us he got robbed, told us he was pissed off. And they really laid up like they were going to give that rematch tonight. So I was actually pretty stoked for him. Wow, that'd be quite a match. So it was interesting. Seth came out and played it up and said, hey, you know what? It's like, that's right. It's like, Seth Rollins just flew back in. He was, having New York doing the Today Show all day, but hey, he's a fighting champ. She's going to put her on the line. So I really like this and was, pretty happy with this development and looking forward to seeing a championship like that.
My only nitpick, is the fact that, Stephanie gave him the match at all. I mean, she could have just used, the fact that he was flying in and did all this work for WWE as an excuse to maybe delay it a week or something like that. That would have made a lot more sense. But, I mean, they had to use Brock tonight or something. So, I mean, I kind of get it. But I'm just saying, like, logically speaking, that's the logic holes you kind of place yourself in when you put one of the top heels of your company who happens to also have power, like, in a shoot way. It kind of gets you into those kind of like quandaries every once in a while where, logically speaking, she wouldn't give him the match at all, because she would know that, Rollins would probably lose. But at the same time, she has to use Brock Lesnar while he's on the show at the same time. That's a lot of reasons why people kind of are tired of the authority angle.
Yeah, well, I was going to say the one thing you're missing out on is when they started the show and announced that, it was 8:00. When they finally decided, hey, you know what, he's not going to be in the show, it was 9:30. So you have people halfway through Raw already, and they put on, I felt like the first half of Raw was a little bit better than the second half. So I think, WWE, they realized, hey, you know what, it's like we're not going to put this on, but we're going to tease it, and we're going to keep eyeballs on our product, and we're going to bring out some new and future stars at WWE. So I like the move overall because guess what? I think a lot of people, if they said right off the bat, there's not going to be a championship match for WWE title night, their TVs would be off that, and they wouldn't have seen it. So that's, I guess the move, I like it. And it kept me, any extra focus. I thought we were going to see the match. I did, check the announcement at the time saying, hey, there's a potential to be 3 championship matches tonight between the Cena match, the Ziggler Bryan match, and the championship match. They would call themselves saying potential to be, as opposed to
just so you know, Vic, your audio is starting to kind of go down in volume for some reason, which kind of has been happening off and on. So I'm trying to listen to you, but like as I try to hear, your words kind of fade out a little bit.
You know what? I'm just going to blame Killer Kev for this one.
Okay.
You know what? I mean, these budget cuts around here in Angry Marks are a little ridiculous. I mean, we have been supporting WrestleWork.com, and I mean, we give them all our support, and we quote them nonstop, and I don't know. I'm hoping their check cleared, but I feel like, Kev, you could maybe give us an update on that and talk about that awesome website in a little while, just to keep our sponsors happy.
Definitely. But the next segment was just as awesome as the first segment. I mean, we got Brock, we got Heyman, we got, heel Steph, and then we got Dolph versus Daniel Bryan yet again. I mean, even though this is the third time they've given it away on free TV, I was anticipating this match just as much as the other two times, and man, did they really deliver in this match. This match was phenomenal. Best match, I would say this is the best match following a Mania since maybe John Cena versus HBK.
Yeah, this was a great match, and I think WWE, I think they've done it right with they've given the championship to somebody who's actually going to be on Raw every week, as opposed to once every 3 weeks, and somebody who's going to actually defend it on the pay-per-views and on Raw. So I like seeing now the title, and it brings it back into the perspective a little bit. And then you give your WWE Intercontinental Championship to Daniel Bryan and your U.S. Championship to John Cena. I mean, I feel like sort of a step back for Cena there, and even Bryan a little bit. But you know what? It makes the belts more relevant and sort of builds up behind them, and it's going to give people the opportunity to really chase after them and achieve something.
Yeah, the whole match was really good, but I really loved the fact that they brought back the headbutt spot that they did during the ladder match, because during the Mania ladder match they had to kind of shoot from further away, and yes, the headbutts kind of look a little silly when you get a little bit closer, but I mean the crowd loved it. The crowd was just eating this up. I mean, this was like the perfect match to throw out in front of all those super marks. And this match really delivered. I thought this, SmackDown was probably the best match until I saw this match, and then Raw kind of came down a little bit, but then they came right back and delivered the match that I was really expecting these two to have. And the whole time I was thinking, I was like, man, we could have just got this on Mania. Could you imagine how much better that would have made the show? I mean, this match definitely would have been a show stealer level match had the main event not been so great.
Yeah, no, I definitely, I agree with you there. But, you know what? I mean, I like the ladder match spot. It was good. And you got a lot of superstars where, I mean, you can get away with leaving the Miz and Mizdow off the show. You can't necessarily do that with the IC champion and some of the not Bray Wyatt, what's his name? You couldn't do most of these people on that. I think the only person who really was questionable in that match would be Cody Rhodes and R-Truth.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody else in the match. So,
I'm sorry.
Hey, you know what? There's a legitimate chance they win. You can't leave Dean Ambrose off the card. You can't leave Tulsa or Daniel Bryan or really the IC champion off the card. I mean, sort of had to put those guys on the card. So I like this to let people get their spots, and that was a really cool match. I was afraid it was going to be a clusterfuck, and came close to me a couple times, but it was really it was entertaining, and they left it with a good story where Daniel Bryan and Dean Ambrose hate each other, and they're going to go nuts. I can actually see this match for the IC strap being like an Iron Man match at some point. I mean, they put on so many good matches. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be SummerSlam or not. It's the next pay-per-view. I can see them putting on this match as an Iron Man match.
I mean, I would love to see that. I just don't know if the WWE fan base has the attention span for it. But Daniel Bryan did win this matchup. Like I said, it was a back and forth matchup right up until Daniel Bryan won, and they did a really good job. But then they kind of brought in Wade Barrett. Looked like Daniel Bryan was going to get the bull hammer here. But then out of nowhere comes Sheamus sporting a mohawk for no reason whatsoever. And it looked like he chased away Wade Barrett, looked like he was out there to help people, and then out of nowhere he attacked Daniel Bryan and turned heel and beat up on Dolph Ziggler as well.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, to be honest with you, he looked like a freaking clown with that new hairdo and with the little braids in his goatee, but I welcome it. I mean, the Sheamus character is pretty played out. I mean, if you think about it, it's sort of been, it's run its course, and he's a solid. I mean, if it was Sheamus back, he would have been one of those people like Kane in the Elimination Chamber, where he's just sort of an enhancement talent. He's not going to win. But he would have been in the ladder match, and he would have been somebody who couldn't win.
I kind of dug the new look, actually. I think it kind of gave him a little bit of an edge, braiding his beard and stuff like that. I mean, it definitely is a departure from his previous look. I think he should have also changed his ring gear, though, to really kind of make the difference really huge. But, I mean, I'm kind of interested to see where it goes. I kind of want to give Sheamus one last chance before I really call him like a dead character. Because, I mean, he still is relatively young. But I would say this is probably his last real chance.
I don't know, yeah, that's the thing. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that, hey, you know what? He's young. There's always going to be spots on, I don't want to say NXT, but I mean, Superstars or Smack. I mean, he's a good SmackDown wrestler. But you know what? I was thinking when I saw this happen, and I think it would be a really good fit. Why not team him up with Wade Barrett? That would be a legitimate tag.
I mean, now that he's heel, I mean, that could be a thing. I mean, that, kind of like the European invasion or something like that. That would be kind of cool. I mean, they need tag teams badly. And the star power of that tag team would be pretty steep. It would give something to do, but I have a feeling they're going to give Sheamus one last singles push before they put him in something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what? I could see that happening, but who knows? It'd be interesting to see if they actually do try to run him and Wade Barrett as a tag team at some point in the future. Like you said, I'm not sure if it's necessarily the best move right here. Let's see if the Sheamus heel turn works out. But I mean, I think he's going to be. I think at best he's going to be just a mid-card heel. I'd almost rather see the tag division, which we can speak on that match in a little while when we finish up here. But I'd almost rather see them upgrade the tag division rather than him and Wade Barrett continuing to fight for the IC strap.
Well, I mean, with the two mid-card belts kind of having more importance now, I mean, I think, obviously they're setting Sheamus up to go against Daniel Bryan for the IC belt. Obviously, that's where this is going. So, I mean, he's going to be in that picture. He's either going to be chasing the U.S. belt or the IC belt for a while here, and then maybe if he doesn't catch on or he gets hurt again, then I could see him being a tag person. But I love the idea, don't get me wrong, but I think it's pretty obvious right now that he's going to chase after the IC belt here.
You know what? I don't necessarily think that, I don't see it at least being a long run at the IC belt. What I see happening is him, him getting a sniff of it, him maybe getting a shot at it. But I think that the next pay-per-view, it's Ziggler and Ryan. I mean, their match is too good, and their match can headline a pay-per-view. I think that, hey, you know what? Maybe they have a match between Ziggler or Bryan and Sheamus at one of the at Raw or on SmackDown, but I just don't feel like that's the right call putting them in a pay-per-view matchup.
After that, the crowd was still really hot because like the first two segments were really, really involved really, really over acts. And then we debuted a brand new tag team, the Lucha Dragons, to which the crowd went nuts for. They were huge over tonight. Pretty much everything they did, the crowd reacted to. I would say, to the smarks in the crowd, it's definitely, I'm hoping that maybe we get kind of like a Fandango situation here where some of the less smarky crowds kind of see this crowd tonight and kind of go with the Lucha Dragons, at least give these guys a chance to kind of establish themselves. I would say it's safe to say that Kalisto is the hotter of the two, especially for tonight's crowd. But I thought the match was pretty fantastic. I was kind of surprised that it wasn't just Kid Cesaro versus the Lucha Dragons, but I guess they need the Ascension there and New Day there, mostly for Ascension to take the pinfall to the Lucha Dragons.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it gives the Ascension a little bit of a rub as a heel. And it was actually funny. I don't think it was intended, but I mean the crowd. I swear, I think that crowd must be 90% of our listeners at AngryMarks, but the crowd absolutely hated New Day, and I loved it because I know I've made my displeasure for them as a faction known over the months since they come together, and this crowd just absolutely hated them. They had their New Day sucks chant going.
Oh, and it was loud. It wasn't like a small chant. It was loud. The only thing that really bothered me about this chant was that Layfield tried to bury it with the same fucking nonsense. And I'm really getting tired of WWE trying to fucking shove this down my throat. That any reaction is a reaction, and that means you're over. It's such bullshit. It's like, dude, like, most of the crowd is not going to just sit there on their hands. I mean, yeah, it's just...
That is go away heat what they had tonight. That's not we hate you because you're Seth Rollins heat, who's super duper over. That's we hate you and your angle's stupid. That's one of the reasons probably you used either one on the show. Aside from the fact that one of them was heat. I mean, it's just pretty much, you know, you run a risk, especially on a night like tonight, you run a risk of the crowd really turning on you as a team. And just, I mean, they go into business for themselves and just make a team that should be, or that WWE is trying to force Narc's face into not even a heel piece, a team that's not liked. And I think we really established that with New Day.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a shame that, like, they were given such a crap gimmick. You can only do so much. I mean, they're trying hard, but it was dead on arrival. And the fact that they've gotten even the kids to chant with them at all is kind of a monumental feat in itself. But man, this crowd just absolutely killed them tonight. And, you know, I thought, you know, that's the worst thing that you could say as a commentator is, one, acknowledge it, and two, like, just say basically, like, your reactions don't matter. We're just going to stick to our guns. And it's just that whole, you know, sometimes WWE just does it way too often. You know, even on a night like this where it's a really good night and it was a really excellent Raw, where we're going to dig our heels in certain times and we're just going to be stubborn just to be stubborn. It's really frustrating as a viewer when it's clear that an act isn't over and you try to convince people that they are.
Yeah, but you know what? Yeah, I feel like you have to do that to some degree if you're WWE, because shit, those guys were freaking dead in the water. This isn't the first night. I mean, they've been dead in the water since their second week out. So, you know what? Let the announcers cover for them however they see fit. But I don't mind it.
But in the past, Vic, I mean, what they would do is just not acknowledge the chants and try to, you know, teach you about each member of their group and like how, like, they're, you know, maybe give you some background as to why you should cheer them. And put them in matches that would kind of slowly build their babyface, like, heat up. Like, I mean, that's how they would do it in the old days. They wouldn't just keep ramming the same gimmick down your throat and hoping that the reaction changes. They would do little things to kind of make you care about the characters more naturally. That's the frustrating part.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that I enjoyed this matchup, and it was nothing to do because New Day was in it. I enjoyed it a lot because I couldn't believe it that Sin Cara and somebody else were actually a respectable tag team in WWE. I had given up hope on Sin Cara being anything in WWE, so thank God that they've actually found a use for him. And I really loved the way they work together. That's the thing. That's the way you bring up a tag team. And I know WrestleMania is only once a year. They bring in so many tag teams right after WrestleMania. But that's how you bring in a tag team. You don't, like, Ascension, when they brought them in, that was a freaking shit show. And, I mean, they're beating up little fat jobber guys from El Paso, Texas, who you never heard of. Like, I mean, who are basically the worst jobbers that you see in 5 years on Raw. I mean, every other wrestler you've heard of, and it's Johnny Vasquez and some other scrub versus the Ascension, and their promo running down the Road Warriors and all the other legendary badass tag teams is longer than the match. But, definitely, I mean, the new tag team with Sin Cara, that are super over, work great with Cesaro and Kid because they've done their time in NXT together. So I really enjoyed it. It was really entertaining. And then it even allowed one of the best parts about this is I think WWE almost acknowledged to a degree that Cesaro and Kidd are sort of smart favorites, I guess you'd say. Just with, I mean, they get like a lot of real wrestling fan props. And when Cesaro got tagged from behind by one of the members of Ascension, he was really in their face. So I think that sort of tried to turn Cesaro and Kidd a little bit more face, but tried to position the Ascension as the real heels in this in the tag team division here. So I thought that was an interesting little play there, and ultimately led to the end of the match.
Definitely. But the next segment was probably the most important segment of tonight. The Raw after Mania was just, I mean, entertaining as all get out. Brock's music hits, and he manages to shake the whole myth that if you come out twice, the pop doesn't come quite to the same level. I felt like even though he was coming out for a second time, the pop was still pretty much close to the first pop that he got when he came out at the beginning of the show. And we're getting our heavyweight title ship. At first, I thought maybe Rollins' music wasn't even going to hit up at all. But sure enough, Seth Rollins' music hits, and he actually got a decent babyface reaction tonight. I'm guessing because the crowd was so smarky.
You know what? I think it was also because his name was not Roman Reigns. I think it's a sense of relief. Now, just the timing of how this was positioned, I knew it wasn't going to be a title match at that point, because you're not going to have a title match at 9:15, the Monday Night Raw after WrestleMania. So I knew there was going to be some sort of an out at that point, and I think probably most fans did too, except for the ones in the arena there, just because they had high hopes of seeing a title match.
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of angle alert big time when they came out at this point, because I thought for sure that was the main event. So I knew shenanigans were going to happen, but I had no idea what kind of shenanigans were going to happen. In the chat room, I did predict that Seth Rollins would eventually run away, and I was right on that. He kind of dilly-dallied outside the ring. He said, you know what? I got jet lag. My foot hurts. I don't think I could give you that match tonight. I think I'm going to give it to you another time. And, Brock wasn't having any of it. He jumped outside, pretty much tried to destroy Seth Rollins. And Seth Rollins was trying to get away desperately here. J&J security gave him just enough time to escape from the wrath of Brock Lesnar. He ran away with his belt. But then, when Lesnar didn't have Seth Rollins to draw his ire at anymore, he went ballistic. And I haven't seen this much destruction since maybe the NXT invasion a few years ago, where he just went berserk.
Yeah. I mean, I almost thought for a second, that JBL, who was it? JBL and Booker T. I thought that they got legitimately hurt when he flipped the table over.
I did as well, because I thought Booker T was
no idea what he was doing.
Yeah, I thought Booker T was standing, because they thought maybe he was going to throw Seth Rollins over the table. And then when Brock flipped the table, it looked like the table went right into Booker T's lower knees, which of course, even though it's a announce table, it still would maybe cause a possible injury. And I completely forgot JBL was still sitting there too. I kind of thought he kind of escaped from this unscathed, but I guess he went down in a different way. But I thought for sure Booker T had some kind of leg injury until they cut to him and he was smiling. That kind of ruined that thought there. But he flipped that table like it was nothing. And I mean, supposedly when they make it so you can't go through the table, it's pretty heavy. So for him to throw it over like that, so easily, was a pretty amazing feat.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that Brock Lesnar, he just needs to realize that's why we have a Spanish announce table out there. You go after that one. You don't screw up the English announce table, because you're bound to get people hurt.
Yeah, the interesting part of...
interesting segment, and unfortunately, I think this is the segment that we use to write Brock Lesnar off the air for about 2 months now, so I don't think we're going to see him next pay-per-view. I don't think we'll see him at another Raw for a while. But,
yeah, and they also wrote Michael Cole off the air, because, I mean, Brock Lesnar F5'd Michael Cole, and then F5'd the cameraman 3 times. And then that's when Stephanie came out and suspended him for, basically until she feels like removing the suspension. And later they basically sold, Michael Cole's injury as a cervical fracture, which, by the way, I just want to go out on the record. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will be complaining about this. I know, Brian Alvarez was going ballistic on Twitter. That happens to be the injury that Paraguay, I think it's pronounced, died from. So that was not cool that they used that to kind of write Michael Cole off TV. They could have used any other injury, but just like apparently just tone deaf WWE just felt like doing that for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. I almost feel like it was that was actually a real injury that he suffered.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if Brock Lesnar wanted to end him, he could have ended him.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that maybe Cole just needed like some time off. He has been on TV for years and years and years, and has taken a lot of vacation time. And because there's no way he could come back next week with the injury that they cited him having. So, I guess he needed just a break. That's the only thing it could be. And obviously, you're right. Tonight was about coming up with a really good way to write Brock off of TV for a few weeks. And I thought, Stephanie was pretty good about, being angry and, suspending Brock. The only thing that I thought this angle kind of needed to kind of put it, over the top as like a perfect ending. To be honest, a woman shrieking at you to get out of a ring to a man like Brock Lesnar really is not going to work. I felt like this is one of those times they could have pulled out the old 1997 trope of bringing out the police people to escort Brock out of the building. Would have made a lot more sense because, at that point you could kind of excuse Brock being escorted out of the ring because, Paul Heyman could kind of talk to him and be like, listen, you could beat up these people and they could find you, but if you hit a cop, you're going to jail. It would be a logical way to kind of escort a rampaging beast out of the building. Whereas the way they did it, it kind of didn't make sense. And they didn't really do a good job of panning over to Paul Heyman, talking him, down and talking him out of the ring. He just kind of walked away because, Stephanie McMahon yelled at him. I felt like they could have done that a little bit better. But other than that, this segment was amazing.
Yeah, you know what? I really like this segment overall. I'm just afraid that Lesnar's going to be off TV for a while. And not just off TV, but off pay-per-views. And I don't like this. If they signed him for 12 fights a year, so he can fight at every pay-per-view, maybe ever all, awesome. If they signed him for 4 fights a year, not a big fan. Not a big fan at all. I think they had to, just so Raw didn't WrestleMania didn't turn into WrestleMania 20, where he got through that in building along with his good friend Bill Goldberg. But yeah, I think they made the right choice by signing him. I just don't know, like I was saying, just the details of this. So time will tell.
Yeah, the next part was kind of interesting because they put on a match with no commentary at all. Stardust, came out, and I was kind of like wondering who was going to be announcing, and there was no announcer, and he was going up against Damien Mizdow. Now, I feel like they did this on purpose. This is just my theory. Plus, writing off Cole and Brock Lesnar was masterful strokes, but I also feel like this was like a natural way to find out just how over Damien Mizdow really is. If there's no commentary, all you have is the guys in the ring and the crowd reaction. There's no interference. Yeah. There's no excuses. And I felt like Mizdow was over. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he was as over as WWE was hoping he would be.
Yeah, you know what? I think he's got his blow off feud with Miz now, but I don't know. I think he's not a title contender at this point. He needs to identify as his own wrestler. Hey, you know what? Feud with Miz, it's great. It's got him some mainstream following, but shoot, you know what? You got to pick the ball and run with it. And I like him as a singles competitor. The thing is, he was all over the place and couldn't get a. He was all over. He was the "You're welcome" phase, and I don't know. I enjoyed it, but he was never over with it. And I think this is really over. But I don't think this is a gimmick you win championships with. This is a gimmick that you get some cheap pops from the crowd, and you're good from there. And
hey man, you could make decent money with a gimmick like this. I mean, just ask Too Cool and Rikishi. I mean, he could make a Hall of Fame career around this gimmick. It's just he's got to add just a couple different flavors to it. I felt like he got a great reaction at Mania. I felt like the reaction was there in spots for him tonight, but there was also spots where like the pop wasn't quite as loud as maybe they were hoping. I thought like the reaction to him at Mania was a lot louder, and the thing that I'm worried about is that when Miz attacked Mizdow, he didn't get booed as much as I thought he would get booed. Now they didn't cheer him either. They didn't really do much of anything. And I thought for sure, having Miz attack him to set up, obviously the future feud with each other for real, like where we actually get matches, it was coming. But I expected Miz to get a lot more heat than he did tonight.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have to remember that a lot of the Marks, they like Miz. I mean, it was 3 years ago that Miz was winning the WWE Championship at WrestleMania. So the next match that we had here, I really think this guy's already over. This gentleman named Neville. His first name is Neville, but he's gone from a full name to a one-word name before his debut in WWE. So obviously he's super over.
I mean, he was over in NXT. I dug his work. I thought his match against Sami Zayn was like, top 5 match of the year. I thought, his match with Finn Balor, top 5 match of the year. Really impressed with his work from NXT. We'll see how good he could be, given the restraints that WWE roster kind of has on guys like this. But, I thought like he found ways to kind of make his offense interesting, even in a squash match, which is a good sign.
Yeah, and again, I think this is the way that you debut somebody to look strong.
Yeah, you set up obvious spots for him to hit what you expect him to hit. I mean, basically this match was just for him to hit the red arrow in front of a massive, crowd. Let's face it, there are more viewers to Monday Night Raw than even Mania can get. So, I mean, this is like a way to just say, hey, here's this guy, here's what he can do. And, for a while, I think they need to just do and get that move over as much as they can. But he also has to be cognizant not to suffer from the Justin Gabriel effect and become a one-move guy. He has to establish other things to surround his work around and repeat those things till the crowd gets it. He has to learn from Bryan Daniel and really copy, the way he does it, because Daniel Bryan is a really good wrestler and has found a way to, incorporate his good work rate while having some spots that are very WWE friendly.
Yeah, exactly. I think they're well on their way with him. I mean, just to debut itself now, I don't know. I feel like the WWE thing, they pick the teams. I mean, getting called up from NXT is a big deal. But I think with the angles, I mean, some people are getting great angles, some aren't. And a lot of that has to do with the wrestlers. But, I mean, the Ascension, they should be, like the Angry Marks have said, they should be one of the top 2 or 3 tag teams in WWE right now. And they're barely getting on the WrestleMania 3 show as part of the Battle Royal. So, I don't know. There's success stories and there's stories of failure. And I think you look back at Night Like Tonight and look at, hey, this is how you get a team over.
Yeah, I mean, they learned their lesson from the Ascension. This is a way better way to introduce people. And again, this match had no commentary, because Byron was out there commentating, but really he was drowning. I mean, he was bombing harder than Larry Land on the Hall of Fame speech. At first I thought maybe he was just talking that way because he was supposed to be selling like how afraid he was for his friends from the commentating team, because every member of the commentating team was basically written off the rest of the show. But, he kept on talking that way, and I really feel like he being thrown by himself on a live Raw, all by himself, like he really froze up. It was clear that when he kept talking that way for a couple segments after, that he really just couldn't. He was given a spot that he just couldn't handle, and just, absolutely drowned in sweat tonight on Raw. That's the only thing that, like, I'll be real negative on. I feel bad for the guy because he was kind of put in a tough spot, but he was given a real chance to shine here, and he kind of really dropped it.
Yeah, and again, like, that goes back to, hey, Brady's legitimate injury in the case, and if that's the case, hey, that's one thing. You're coming in there, like, literally off the street and in this situation, or was this a work that has been put together and he knew it was coming?
I feel like it was a work. I feel it was like a way to write Cole off TV and give Saxton a real chance. And I think, like, he shit the bed.
But what about just teaming him up with JBL and Booker T? I think they could have the same thing done. I think those two may have got actually injured. It'll be interesting to find out about that.
I think they had to bump them because otherwise, if they were, like, left standing and Brock just F5 Cole for no reason, then Booker T and JBL would have to at least try to fight him. And then it would get weird because then you have two ex-wrestlers going against a current wrestler. So, like, fans would kind of expect them to at least put up a fight. So no matter what Brock did to him, unless he, like, F5 both of them, like, 5 times, like, the crowd probably wouldn't believe it as much as, like, F5 and Cole. So I think it was better to just kind of flip the table on them and kind of maybe try to get fans to think that, like, they were hurt in some other way than just being, like, knocked out. Like, maybe they had, like, knee injuries or something like that. I thought that was a better way to go, because it would have drawn out the segment with Brock a little bit too much if you would have left JBL and Booker T standing. But they did eventually bring out Jerry Lawler, which to save Saxton, but that wasn't for a couple segments. But I thought that was interesting. I thought that was them basically waving the white flag on poor Saxton and saving his ass. Another great match.
I think that was more. That was like, hey, we had Saxton out there for a while. Hey, he's struggling, get him over the halls and get out there to do it. I wouldn't have been surprised if the thing wasn't there. They had Alex Riley.
Yeah, I kind of thought it might be like Corey Graves or somebody like that, but I guess they wanted to, because he was drowning so bad, they didn't want to send another guy who was young out there. They wanted to put somebody out there who could carry this poor guy at least through the rest of the broadcast. But tonight was like a really great night for matches and segments. That the U.S. Championship match, John Cena put up an open challenge, and when Dean Ambrose music hit, I was marking out because I thought for sure Dean Ambrose was dead from the ladder match, because I thought he came down on his head through a ladder and was pretty much gone for a couple months due to injury. But it turns out that, he might have had like a slight injury, but it's nothing that's going to make him miss time in the ring.
Yeah, I was pretty stoked about that. He's showing he's just a A+ player. You know what? I feel like they could put him right in the championship picture. I don't think they will, but I have a feeling if they did, he can carry the crowd. He gets a pop like few others.
Yeah, he's really over, especially with the WrestleMania crowd. But I feel like tonight's match, the mission statement was to try to get Dean Ambrose over more than he already is over by interacting with John Cena. It's the biggest match he's had, on as far as singles career goes, in my opinion. And it was a really good match. Midway through, Jerry Lawler did come out and join Byron. And the match was excellent. I thought it was really good. I thought maybe it was a little bit too Mania type of a match because, they did kick out of each other's finishers. And to a certain extent, that does kill the finisher. The more people kick out of it. But at this point, that's kind of WWF formula. If you want to have a really good, 4-star match and you want the crowd to really buy into your match and really react with a "this is awesome" chant, you kind of got to throw in a couple false finishes with the finishers. And that's just kind of been a staple ever since like the first HBK Taker match. That's a hard and true formula that's kind of developed since that match. But I mean, I'm not knocking the match. I'm just saying like it kind of kills the finish a little bit, just because, Dirty Deeds and at this point a lot of people have kicked out of the attitude adjustment at this point. But John Cena retained in a very excellent match. It's one of those things, like, I don't always agree that the loser can gain a lot in a loss all the time, but I felt like this was a match that was like a really good example of somebody who's losing in the match but is over more than they were when they came in.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that was I agree with you there. And you know what? I think that match was almost a way to give, or to try to give Cena some Ambrose love. I feel like WWE's been desperate almost to get Cena some people to cheer for him, because it doesn't seem like there's a lot of them. And I think getting a championship being Rusev, like Rusev was arguably the biggest, most famous heels out there. I mean, he got the championship off him. He beat the undefeated superstar Rusev, and he's still getting booed out of the stadium.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, like, I would say like the first 2 hours of Raw flew by, man. I mean, they were excellent 2 hours. Everything was really, really good. And then it felt like right after this match, the event started kind of tapering off a little bit. It kind of started with the Divas match. The Divas match was given plenty of time, but it just wasn't anything to write home about. And that's kind of where, like, the crowd kind of started dying and losing some of its energy. Then you had Goldust versus Rusev in a squash match to kind of rehab Rusev and give him his loss back. And the crowd just couldn't get into that because basically, Rusev was selling that he was angry and pissed off. So he basically just ran roughshod over Goldust, and in a ugly, sloppy, kind of like smash mouth kind of way, which it makes sense because it sold that he really was legit angry. I thought it was a good character building match, but like as far as this crowd and what they saw the rest of the night, thought by the time that they did this, like the crowd was just not in the mood to see like a match like this and kind of be patient with it. And then by that point, you're already at the main event.
The match was about a minute 15 seconds long too. It's not like it was a 20-minute match or even a 10-minute match for the story built up. This was a minute and 15-second match. So
yeah, they could have used like maybe to save maybe the Dean versus John Cena match for the main event instead of the main event they went with, because it felt like this event, the way it went, kind of petered out prior to the last hour. I'd be interested to see if the rating falls pretty far when it gets to the third hour, when the ratings come out tomorrow. But the main event was Kane, Big Show, and your WWE World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins. He looked amazing with the belt on, by the way. And I'm glad that he's one of those guys who wears it around the waist, because most smaller guys are a little bit intimidated to do that. And it was kind of like a few years ago a fad to kind of flip it over your shoulder, which drove me fucking nuts. Because I personally, if I won the world title, I'd wear it around my waist. But he's one of those guys that wears it around the waist, and it looks really good on him. And they were going up against Randy Orton, who most of the show they tried to tease that he was going to have trouble finding, opponents to go against these three. But Ryback, like somewhere in tonight, said, hey, anytime I could take on an authority, I'm down, basically. And then basically everybody did the math and figured out Reigns was going to step up. And to the point that when they teased that, Ryback and Orton were all by themselves against three people, before Reigns' music even hit, the crowd turned around looking for him. So, I mean, that tells you how bad of a secret that was. And they didn't really do a good job of, I felt like, because the matches and stuff like that were going long, and because it was a segment heavy Raw, I felt like they kind of lost the story of Orton looking for tag partners, because they could have used maybe him walking up to a couple of people and getting told no to kind of make the story a little bit more fleshed out. But I felt like the story kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. And, the main event itself wasn't that bad. It's just, it didn't live up to the earlier matches in the night.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I think that, like you said, I think Dean Ambrose, Cena, that would have been a great way to spread it out and instead have, I just don't understand why Seth Rollins is even in a match if he's forcing out on having a match against Lesnar. But I guess that's Lesnar took care of himself there.
Yeah, I guess that's just I think they just want to move away from the Lesnar formula where the champ's not on TV. They're going to go back to what they ideally in a perfect world like to do, which is have the champ on TV as much as possible to kind of, so they can have a champ around, have the belt around. And plus I think strategy says that, tonight's rating's going to pop pretty high, considering the star power, and it is a post-Mania Raw, as well. When you debut a new champion, you could kind of maybe try to attach that rating to him being on top, if they really want to. I mean, they're a little screwy when it comes to stuff like that. Sometimes they choose to look at segment by segment ratings. Sometimes they choose to look at ratings the way they want to look at them. And if they really want to give Seth Rollins a chance, I think that's why they did it tonight. They wanted to have him on the main event because he is the champ, and they wanted to kind of try to pump that rating as high the first 2 hours as possible to see how many eyeballs he could keep on the show.
Yeah, and you know what? I like their strategy of putting the belt on Seth Rollins. I mean, I've said this. I've been a big proponent of his for quite a while, and I say even back in November, December, I'm like he is by far the best heel you have, hands down, in WWE. You know what? I don't care about Lesnar. He's gonna have his feuds because he's fighting against Cena or whoever for the championship. But Rollins, he had legitimate feuds with probably a half dozen of the WWE superstars, major main event type players, WWE superstars. So, I mean, he developed his character more. I feel like him and Ambrose have developed their character more, hands down, more over the last year than Roman Reigns. And I think if that was not the case, I think Roman Reigns would be wearing a belt right now. Because I think Roman Reigns had the easiest path.
I mean, you have a really good argument as far as in-ring competitors of saying that Seth Rollins is the number one heel. The only person that could maybe make an argument would be Rusev. I'm saying that Triple H and Stephanie are a little bit hotter heels, but I mean, in-ring wrestlers, Seth Rollins is probably the number one heel. Rusev's probably a close two, and I would say after tonight, I would say you've already put Sheamus number 3 because nobody cares about Show or Kane.
Yeah, you know what? And that's the thing. I like your rankings, but I disagree completely about how over Rusev is. I don't think he's super over. I think that he's going to lose a lot of steam now that his undefeated super athlete streak is over. So we'll see. We'll see where he goes. But
it's possible because it's always a struggle when a federation finally decides to end a winning streak like that, because a lot of guys' careers who looked like it was going to be unstoppable when they finally lost, the career kind of halted, kind of lost a lot of momentum. So I mean, it wouldn't be exactly groundbreaking if that would happen. I'm just saying that. By and large, from the booking tonight, it looks like they haven't lost faith in Rusev just yet. It looks like they're going to stick to their guns and try to push him hard.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting. I like him being pushed as a super heel, but I was saying, I don't necessarily think that he's over to a tenth of what Seth Rollins is over.
So, I mean, what would you grade tonight's Raw after Mania?
I'd give it an 8.5. I liked it, But like you said, at the end of the show, I mean, it was literally its first 2.5 hours, solid. Main event, I mean,
Well,
it was, hey, you know, maybe you can build some storylines off of it, but I don't think it was great. I think it's more, the WWE Raw was good tonight because they debuted some superstars. They really developed this Neville guy, and they had a couple of good matches. I mean, Dean Ambrose and Dolph Ziggler was a great match, and Ambrose and Cena was a great match. So I like those aspects of it, but at the same time, I don't think Rusev is over as the massive heel that WWE would like him to be.
Yeah, I thought tonight was a 9.5 kind of situation, or if you're doing a 5-star thing, I honestly put tonight's Raw 5 stars flat. That's how much I liked it. Even though the last hour did drag a bit, I mean, we're never going to get a Raw quite like that for the rest of the year. I guarantee you that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know what? You're right. And I think the crowd, if you base it just on crowd reaction, yeah, it's a 9.5, 10. But I mean, when you have the crowd reaction chanting, what were they chanting? I read it on the internet. They were, "We own the show" or something during the main event, trying to dictate like a moving. I don't know.
Yeah, they were also chanting, "We are awesome. We are awesome. We are awesome."
Yeah, I mean, I like the crowd reaction, but I feel like they were a little too smarky with, hey, you know what? We took over Raw and we're just fucking with it, versus we took over Raw and we had some awesome chants and we made it a better show.
That happens sometimes when you get that many smarks in one room. They all think they're smarter. So, I mean, you're going to get some chants like that kind of turn you off a bit. That happened at the Pittsburgh show, at the Rumble. You know, that happens. You know, it's happened a couple times where the crowd, you know, basically start chanting stuff, saying basically like, "Fuck you, we're smart, you're not," you know, kind of stuff. That's what it happens, man. But I thought tonight was, you know, when people ask me why do I watch wrestling, sometimes I have, you know, like, you know what, I've been watching for like over 25 years. I'm kind of in for life at this point. But tonight is really the real reason why I watch wrestling. I mean, tonight was every bit what I look forward to. I just wish that they could duplicate it more frequently. But hey, man, I'll take it when I get it. And tonight I was a mark big time for once in quite a few years.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? That's fine. I enjoyed the show. I really enjoyed the crowd. I mean, the crowd was entertaining. But it'll be interesting to see what WWE goes with this. I like where they're positioned because right now they have fighting chance.
Yeah, the fascinating part is they did tease some pretty big matches on this week's SmackDown. We set up 2 matches on Raw tonight for that SmackDown.
Well, I mean, it should still. No, I'm just gonna say. I mean, it should be a good matchup. It seems like they've really, since they moved to Thursday night, they've really put renewed focus on SmackDown. I like it a lot. I think that they're trying to bring. I mean, I think they realize Friday nights it's not a good show or not a good time. Not a good night to really debut people or set up storylines for Thursday and a lot more hardcore fans. All right, Killer Kev, you gonna kill the show?
Are we done?
I'm good.
I think we are.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next week, hopefully with better audio. Good night.
Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Kev.
You're welcome.
Peace.